You got to operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. I'm Daniel, and on this episode, we're going to take a look at the Gators' trip to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Mizzou Tigers. With that said, they are one of the surprises of the 2023 college football season. After the last few years of being bowl eligible but ending with a losing record, their head coach gave up play calling duties, and in one season, their quarterback, who is questioned, has become one of the best in the SEC. They lost their best offensive player, Dominic Lovett, to Georgia through the transfer portal, and yet they have a top 26 offense in the nation and are, I believe, 8-2 on the year, with their only losses currently being to Georgia and to LSU. And that LSU game was a really tough game that they just lost at the end. And last week at home, they decimated Tennessee 36-7. So, with that said, is it going to be a tough game for Florida? Yes. Let's go ahead. Let's look at some storylines for the game. The first storyline right now, it does revolve around mounting pressure at Florida, to be honest. Staring down the barrel at a losing season, and not the losing season like Mizzou had, where they got to a bowl 6-6 and then lost in the bowl game. Instead, looking down the barrel at a 5-7 regular season, there's mounting pressure. Let's just call it what it is. Be honest about what it is. And along with losing now 3, this is being recorded on Wednesday night, losing 3 top recruits, 2 other teams, including to Georgia with the most recent decommitment, and the class falling to number 5. Hopefully it stays in that top 5 again for the season. I had very few things that I said we need to do. One is win 7 games. That is still possible, but not probable. The other is have a top 5 recruiting class, which right now we're there. We could add people, we could lose people. We will see how it works out. As I said on the last episode, as I'll say now during this storyline segment, recruiting does not matter till you get to early signing day. We can flip people, people can flip from us. It doesn't matter until the end of early signing day and national signing day. For good, for bad, whatever it is, it does not matter until then. But since we have seen the drop in the recruiting rankings, along with staring down a losing record, there is mounting pressure on Billy Napier. Will Napier and the players respond to that? And what can we see going forward from this team? Will we see changes to offense or defense to try and simplify things, or to get the ball in guys like Eugene Wilson's hand? Again, I said after Georgia, I've said it other games. Will we see changes so he doesn't disappear after the first drive where he's getting the ball down the field and then all of a sudden he's standing static on the sideline, or we're not seeing routes? And we can talk about, well, he's being, double teamed. He's not. He really isn't. There's a lot of things we can do, but we don't need to lie about what's going on. A lot of times he has one-on-one, and we are not finding ways to get him the ball. Missouri, one of their top players, Luther Burden, redshirt freshman. He is one of their best receiver. You think he's not double teamed? He's double teamed plenty. They find ways to get him the ball. That's what we need to do with Wilson. So with our backs to the wall, that is the first storyline. Will we see changes to try and maximize optimally like that with the mounting pressure, or will the pressure cave in the remainder of the season, and will this be an ugly game? The second thing is Mizzou having a top 50 defense and facing them on the road. When we face top 50 defenses away from home, let's talk about it. It's been Utah. It's been Kentucky. It's been Georgia. And what do those three teams have in common? We only scored once until we were down by 3 scores. So can we, you know, adjust to that as a storyline for the offense? Defensively, on the road, we have been terrible against the run. A little bit better at home. Again, we talk about Tennessee, a pretty good offense. Did well at home. With that said, on the road, they were so against a not so great Utah offense, so against a not so great Kentucky defense. In fact, let records be put up there. And then, of course, weren't great against the pass against, South Carolina and Georgia and LSU, and also weren't great against the run against LSU. We talked about how Jaden Daniels had over 200 yards. So will the defense step up or find ways to get continued stops in this game? Of course, we've talked about Georgia, LSU. They got a few stops. We know this defense isn't good, but when they get stops, can the offense take advantage? That is another storyline to look at going forward. Now, looking specifically at the offense, what are some keys to this game? Well, the first key is if the defense gets stops, you need to take advantage of it. You can't have like against Georgia, against LSU, where the defense actually gets one of the few stops they're going to get and then go 3 and out or 4 and out or 5 and out. You've got to get points when that chance arrives, because if you're going to beat Missouri, if you're going to beat FSU, it's probably going to be in shootout fashion. And the only way you're going to win a shootout is to score when your defense gets stops, whether that is due to a bad throw, just an overthrown receiver where your defense didn't do anything, or even a good fourth down on the goal line stand. You got to find a way to operate and score points when you get stops. And so that is the first key. If the defense gets stops, and I think they may get a few, I don't think they'll get many. Offense, first key is to score. The second key is get the ball into your playmakers' hands early and often. That means get Wilson the ball, not just on the first drive. Find ways creatively to get him the ball on the second, third, fourth, every drive. Find ways to get Pearsall the ball, get ETN more touches. Almost every game, he's had a higher yards per carry average. I do understand that there are some pass blocking issues, but there's also pass blocking issues the other way. We talked about how at Arkansas, he was actually the higher graded back in pass blocking. So, yes, there's some of that, but you also need to get the ball to your playmakers and find ways to do it in space, and not just, hey, you run out here, and stand in space for a dump off static. Find ways to get them where they can move creatively, and don't run simple slant patterns or, Eugene Wilson on that fourth down. And Gator Nation Football Podcast had a good breakdown on this play where they brought him in motion and then had him slant across the middle. And they talked about it being more of an angle route, but still slant type route on third and fourth downs. You hear me every week talk about we keep doing this as our tendency, and they never seem to work on those downs, but they do work well. We did them multiple times, not on those downs. First drive against LSU. Let's do some of that. They work well when we seem to not do them on the predictive downs. So find ways to get your playmakers the ball is the second key. The third key that I have for you today is, of course, we've got to hit some passes in the intermediate. I talk about this every week. I'm going to keep repeating it. We have 70% of our passes completed in less than 10 yards. And when you do that, the defense doesn't cover as deep, which means they're closer to the line of scrimmage, which means your screen game's not going to be quite as effective. Doesn't mean you're not going to get a few good screens, but you're probably going to have more that get stopped short of what they could because you're not threatening the other team deeper. Your safeties are closer to the line, which helps in run defense, helps in run support, where if they've got to be a few yards further back, that's a few yards further they have to travel to make contact, and maybe another yard or two per carry on a play. So again, those intermediate routes, I'm not asking for us to throw like 10 deep shots. I'm asking us to hit some 12, 13, 14-yard routes, back off the defense just enough, and also maybe hit some quick slants on first and second down where they've been successful, unlike our tendency on third and fourth down. So, but if you do that, back off that defense, it's going to open up room for the running game. And if you're running well, you can possibly shorten this game. Not like when we're doing run, 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 punt, and then 3 plays, it doesn't matter. But if you are running consistently and making that yardage available by backing off a defense, then you can run some clock. And then that also gives Mizzou less possessions. The less possessions they have, the very few stops this defense will probably get are valuable. But again, going back to point one, they're only valuable if you take advantage of those stops. So that's our keys. First key, again, for the offense is to take advantage when the defense inevitably gets a few stops. Second key, playmakers in space. Third key, I need to see that intermediate passing game take shape if we have any shot to win against Mizzou. For the defense, looking at, some of the keys, again, this defense has been not great. And I do think part of that is we've started to face better offenses, and Mizzou is 26th in the nation. FSU, I believe, is 24th, 23rd in the nation total offense. Now, neither has a great, statistically, they're not top running offenses, but that's because they're top 20 passing offenses. And so, with that said, Cody Schrader ran for 200 yards last week against Tennessee. He's also, I believe, one of the leading rushers in the SEC, if not the leading rusher in the SEC. So Mizzou definitely has the ability to run. Brady Cook isn't Jaden Daniels, their quarterback. However, he can still move. He can still get downfield, cause problems with his legs. You got to contain him. First thing I've got to say for a key is contain Brady Cook. Why? Because if you can contain him, at least take away some of that run game, then maybe you can also get in and get the sacks we have not been getting against a lot of these teams. I posited the question before we face South Carolina. It's like, what's it going to look like facing these four of our top 6, or 4 of our last 6 games were against teams in the top 50 at that time in passing? I said, what's it going to look like with a team that's in the hundreds in sacks, which was us? And so far, it's not looked great. Maybe if we keep him contained, we can at least have time to get to him, rather than he gets out and now we're in a fire drill and there's a chance someone breaks away from the route, makes a big play, or he picks up yards with his legs. He did some damage against Georgia with his legs. He's damaged other teams with his legs. Keep him in the pocket, and then maybe he reverts to the Brady Cook that we saw previously. Now, with that said, again, first-year offensive coordinator coming in, making him look a lot better. Second key is definitely take away Luther Burden. I don't care if you've got which is their star receiver, redshirt freshman. I don't care if you've got to put 3 guys on them. You find a way to lower that attack. You try and take them away, and now they've got to try and find something else. Doesn't mean that there isn't other things they can't do, but I don't see a way of winning where we just say, all right, we're going to play one-on-one man coverage just on Burden, because I think he's going to win that more times than he's not. We've got to have, a safety over the top. We've got to find something, whether it's run more zone, although I do like press man. This is a situation where running zone and trying to confuse Mizzou might be a really good thing. And then the third thing is slow down Schrader, the running back. Why? Because if they cannot run, then it's going to be at least a better day. But again, this is a top 20 passing offense. So slowing down the run only does so much, but it's better to slow down that run. And if you can slow down the run and take away burden, there is a chance you can get a few stops. And with a few stops, if the offense takes advantage, there is a chance for a win. This is probably the toughest Mizzou team, to be honest, that we have faced since they joined the SEC. And again, I want to point out this is a Mizzou team that changed offensive coordinator in year one has jumped so much with a lot of these players, including multi-year QB, note, a young receiver, note, and an undervalued running back. Again, take notes. I'm not saying that Mizzou and our situation this year to next year are necessarily similar. I'm just saying I'm not going to be making an excuse next year that if we hire an offensive coordinator, oh, it's their first year, because I've seen the results. I've seen the same experience. That's what I got. And we'll just see. But anyways, to get on to what I believe really is this final score, and this is going to be one of the coldest games, and I guess this should be a storyline as well. One of the coldest games that I've attended for a Florida game. I believe I saw it's 49 at kickoff in the nice Missouri night, and it's only going to get colder from there. That's also a factor. I've rarely seen this team play well in the cold. The next coldest game I can think of was last year at Vandy. We all know what happened there. But in 2020, I was there when it was this cold in Knoxville, and we did come away with a win. However, that was one of the more rough games that we played that season. So it will be very curious to see how the weather can impact this game. So with all that, the weather, our storylines, about the pressure, talking about on offense, can we take advantage? Can we get our guys in space? And can we, on defense, slow down and contain Brady Cook? Can we take away burden? And then can we slow down the running attack? If we can do some of that, I think there is a chance, but the only chance, like I've said, is a shootout. We're going to go ahead again. Straight honest, I'm not going to pick against the Gators, even, and this is not the worst game that I've, picked the Gators where it's quite obvious that it's lopsided. And I think last week was about the same thing. Last week I said 38-35 Gators, and first half defense held them to 17. And if they played that way the second half, at least the defense would have held that up. Unfortunately, 35 second half points. With that said, I'm going to actually go with 45-42 Gators on the road. I think maybe we see things like Wilson gain more touches, and that's going to help out. I think we're going to see, the offense actually take advantage of from some stops, and we're going to see what I've talked about, where there is a belief if you get that early lead. We're going to see what I've talked about, where if you get that early lead, other teams don't have as much confidence, or they start play calling different. Doesn't mean you necessarily win, but you have a lot better chance than if you don't score and take advantage. And now you're down by 3, 10, or in the case of some other games, 17, 29 points. Obviously, if you take advantage, those gaps do not happen. With that said, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you all. And as always, go Gators.